Hi, Nick. It's so nice to see you.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here and talk about parties and making new friends.
I love parties and I love making new friends too. And I'll share with the group that I met Nick years ago at one of our very first in-person caves. I think you walked in wearing a shirt that said, I think it had a curse word on it, but it was something about museums being awesome.
Yes, yes.
What did the shirt say?
The shirt said museums are freaking awesome. Similar, yeah.
Right, with a nice curse in there. But I think I had heard about Museum Hack, which we're not going to spend a lot of time on today. But I'd heard of this amazing organization that you had started, and I was like, this is the Nick Gray. Before we dive into the main topic of today, can you just tell us what Museum Hack is, just for reference?
Yes, so I was briefly famous in New York, at least, for starting something called Museum Hack that did renegade museum tours at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And then we grew to other cities around America. And what was special was we would hire people like Broadway actors and stand-up comedians to lead the museum tours. Because I hate most museums. I think they're very boring and I have a short attention span. And so that's what made our tours unique.
It's whenever I go to a museum, I try to make up games, which I also did a version of that, but in New York City. But I love making a game out of going to a museum, right? Like it's
Mm,
so much more interesting.
so much
Uh,
more fun.
yes. I just wanted one more piece
Mhm.
of logistics before we officially get started. How today is going to look. So Nick and I are going to have a nice conversation, mostly about parties and making new friends and why that's important. And then we're going to get a chance for you all to ask some questions. So think about questions you might have for Nick. Um, and then we're going to get a chance to do some deep work together, because that's what's so fun about these deep dives. We get to work alongside some of our unique industry expert folks. And then we'll have a share out at the end. So we'll wrap up in about 90 minutes, but that's what you can expect today. If you have questions, you can throw them in the chat. And Jake is here also to help with any urgent questions that come up. All right, enough said. So Nick, I kind of think of you as the authority on hosting the perfect 2-hour cocktail party.
Oh, good, great, good. Very, very niche authority, but yes, that's it.
Um, Before we, Nick did write a book about it. I mean, you are the authority because you actually wrote a book called The 2-Hour Cocktail Party,
Yes.
how to build big relationships with small gatherings. And I just want to give us a little context. How did you come up with this idea? Why are you the authority? What's behind the book?
I found that the best way to grow my network, to make new friends, to build relationships, and just to have an active social life, instead of going to bad events, I learned how to host a good one myself. I don't do well at nightclubs or networking events. And by the way, the book says the 2-hour cocktail party, but there's not a single drink recipe that's in the book. It's not about the alcohol. We use that phrase cocktail party because for as long as that's about the people. People want to come to meet others. Nobody teaches adults how to make new friends, and anyone can learn to host a simple gathering. I think a lot of people give entrepreneurs the advice, oh, you should start a mastermind. Oh, you should host a dinner party. I found that after hosting hundreds of events in New York City, the cocktail party format was the easiest way for me to do it repeatedly, right? Because you get the biggest benefits when you make hosting a habit, when it becomes something that you repeatedly do. So that's kind of what the book is about. It's a step-by-step guide, a workbook.
I'll share that I had the pleasure of attending a couple of these cocktail parties, and they were. I know you've since moved to Austin, but when you were in New York, they were legendary. The Nick Gray cocktail party was like you wanted to get an invite to this, and
Oh, thank
I
you.
remember walking to the first party and thinking, the nerves of a new experience, not knowing if I'd know anyone there, and immediately walking in just feeling a sense of relief and belonging. And you had a few, we're going to talk later about, you're going to give us your you're going to go through an exercise with us on how you could do the party. But so I won't give away too many of those hints right now, but it was remarkable how in 2 hours I felt like, I've made new friends. I didn't really think about drinking at all. And it wasn't awkward. And I think what the thing is about your parties is they are facilitated, right? When you think about a cocktail party, they're not usually facilitated. Can you talk to us about like the facilitation of a cocktail party?
Yes, there's a little bit of structure. I think more social gatherings should have more structure just because they help introverts or people with social anxiety to feel more included. And so a lot of what I do is about that. Um, and I also want to say that if you're watching this, you're like, I don't need this. I don't host parties. Well, I wrote the book for people who've never hosted before. So if you're an expert host, maybe like Molly or like Jake, yeah, there's some things you can learn from this book, the way that I structure, but this book is really written the 0 to 1 for someone who maybe they've only hosted, they got married and that was the biggest party they've ever had it, or maybe they only host on birthdays for them or their kids. And they're like, oh yeah, I really wish I could see my neighbors or my friends, those people I've fallen out of touch with. I found that in a 2-hour cocktail party, I could reconnect with 15 to 20 acquaintances. This is kind of about building your network of acquaintances, because that's where all relationships start, is in that acquaintance network. But for the structure, which was your question, it's just a little structure. It's like name tags. I will die on this hill. Everyone, even for a party of your friends, should wear a name tag, because we forget what the experience is like for the +1 of our friend, for our friend's new significant other, for the neighbor that just moved to the hood, for somebody that you may know their name, but I promise you, they don't know your friends' names. And that experience of wearing a name tag completely changes to make it a safe space to go talk to new people. And that's really what these parties are about, and why you can be successful hosting one. You don't have to have a big house. In fact, big houses are actually worse for parties, huge mansions. I like smaller spaces are better because the party feels more alive. The energy is better. So name tags are one example of the structure. You'll also send 3 reminder messages to keep your event sort of top of mind. And you'll run 2.5 rounds of icebreakers. I promise they're not cheesy. They work all the time. I've tested thousands of these. I know the questions that always work. But those icebreakers give people an excuse to it's a conversational crutch. And you want to help your friends meet more people. 19% of American men, 15% of American women say they don't have a single close friend. And so you'll be successful in hosting these parties because you'll help your friends meet some of your other friends. So I've talked a lot, but there's a lot. Yeah.
What are those stats again, Nick?
19% of men, 15% of women don't have a single close friend. As we get older, it's harder to meet new people, even when we need those relationships more. And so this is a way to help people kind of meet new people. It's like speed dating for new friends or something.
Yeah. Do you think that, so, in this COVID hangover time that we're in, and remote work, this loneliness epidemic, do you think that this is it's becoming more prevalent, right? Like this, like, who are our close friends?
Oh yeah, the stats show it. There's plenty. You can do a search for loneliness epidemic, search for friendship recession. These stats are pretty scary as far as the number of people that we hang out with. And it may not be like that for you. You may be watching this and say, well, I have friends, I'm fine. Number one, I guarantee you that this party will be successful because your friends will meet new people. And that's the purpose of this. And number two, a lot of people say, I have the same friends, we do the same thing. How might my life be different if I had others that were interested in starting a business or being more productive or healthier habits? What might my life be like with a different peer group? And I found that if you want to meet interesting people, you have to do interesting things. And the best way to do interesting thing is just to host a gathering. Everyone wants to know someone who brings people together. And anyone can learn how to do that. I think I wrote a book about that, but I'll share all the stuff too. You don't have to buy my book. I don't want to make this like a sales thing.
Well, something I wanted to drill into is, so anyone can learn to host a party like this, but what if you just want to be the attendee? Like what is, why is it, what's the benefit of being the host versus the participant?
The benefit to being the host is if you really want to build relationships, if you really want to make new friends, then you have to give before you try to get anything. If you want to be invited to things, if you want to meet interesting people, you need to be able to give first. And I found giving the gift of an invitation to a party. Everyone wants to be invited to a party. I've invited thousands of people. I've never had somebody say, quit reaching out to me with these free party invitations to meet interesting people. It's one of the easiest ways to sort of make contact or reestablish contact with people you've fallen out with.
Right. So even someone who's like, oh, I consider myself, I'm not speaking for myself. We all know that I'm not shy, but let's say I was, and like, oh, I'm ready to put myself out there, but I'm shy. Can I do this? And you're telling us, yeah, you totally can.
Yes. Oh my God. I talked to this guy in Houston last week. He's a screenwriter. He's a writer. He's shy, but there's an active online sort of community, strangely, of screenwriters in Houston, Texas. Didn't know that there was. And he was so nervous, but he said, I used your book. I literally followed every single script I read from the book during the party to say all the stuff. And I have his photo on my website because I was just so proud of him. And he said, it worked. It was great. And I met all these people, and now we're going to do it again in 2 weeks. And I hear a lot of stories like that from people that have never hosted. They've wanted to host, or they've known people that are hosts, and they said, oh, I didn't know that it was just that simple. And they just use my book as like a crutch to be like, oh, I just read this book. I'm going to follow these instructions. But let's take, for example, the idea of stopping your party to run a round of icebreakers. Some people listening may be like, that is terrifying. Why would I stop the party when everything's going so well? And so I have strong thoughts on why you would do an icebreaker at a party.
Well, something that we had talked about via email, it's everyone hosts, not everyone, but most of us at some point host some kind of gathering, whether it be a wedding, which is a big, that is a behemoth kind of event, but a birthday party, a housewarming party, a baby shower. There's all these kinds of things, and we have never, like you said, we've never been taught how to host an event. Similarly, with Caveday, we talk about how we've never really been taught how to work, and so we have these like, oh, as adults, we can learn how to do these things that we think are inherent, but they're actually not. And so like, I would assume that in like a birthday party, you might not do an icebreaker, or maybe you would, I'm not sure, but like, can you learn how to host other kinds of gatherings that aren't just this cocktail party format?
Yes. This same format, think about it like a party operating system, and folks have used it to apply to a baby shower, a birthday party. This girl, Bella, in New York, used it for a Valentine's Day party last night. Housewarming parties, birthday parties are really unique gatherings, even baby showers, because you bring together different groups of people in your life and you want them to mix up. And oftentimes that is when the parties are most successful. Different groups, different people you bring them together, and you hope that they'll mix, but oftentimes we just kind of throw them in a room and we just forget about it. One thing that I say in my book, by the way, one of the rules is that it's not a focus on food. And the reason for that is I'd rather have somebody leave one of my parties hungry than bored, okay? And so I think a lot more about how to get the room mixing up and new conversations than about this incredible spread of food. My friends are adults, they can feed themselves. I say that rudely, but it is a constraint that I put on people. This guy in Washington, D.C., I think his name's Joseph, he's a chef. And he said, your book gave me permission to not serve food. Every time I'm a chef, people expect this big extravagant food thing, like I have to impress them. And because of that, I never ended up hosting. I'd host once a year. But he said, that's not who I want to be. I want to be someone who's a connector, who brings people together. I want an active social life, but I wasn't, because people always expected so much. And I said, oh, that's my work. I don't want to do that for fun. And so we can use these sort of constraints in my book to learn how to host what I call the MVP, the minimum viable party. What's the easiest gathering you can do with the least amount of work, the least amount of stress, and you'll be surprised.
As my own experience as a host, I finally cracked something which feels really great for me. Like I'm not a great chef. I'm not a great cook. I like to, if we're speaking about a dinner party, let's talk for a second about a dinner party. So I would really want to impress my friends with delicious food and really go over the top. And I would be I sort of run anxious, and I would be like really elevated, couldn't speak to them when they were arriving, just like, and then by the time we sat down for dinner, I was like, is it good? Are they liking it? Oh my gosh, I have to make, who wants to be hosted by someone like that? So rather, if I'm hosting a dinner party, I'll go really extravagant and get like crab legs and, make bellinis with the cheapest version of caviar I can find, and like make it seem, or like shrimp cocktail, make it seem like it's delicious food. I didn't have to do anything. And I get to play host. And that for me was like, yes, I've been to so many dinner parties where it's the focus is the food. And I love that, but we're not talking about anything. It's so boring. Ugh.
Yes. I actually tell people in my book, never do a dinner party, because a dinner party is a very advanced level move. It requires a level of skill and preparation. And I found after hosting dozens of dinner parties myself, I could get 80% of the benefits with 20% of the work just by hosting a cocktail party instead. Dinner party requires a large commitment from your guests. It requires a lot of work from you. And it also requires expert facilitation. You have to drive and direct the conversation. And there are a lot more moments of awkwardness. I actually found a funny thing was that the more people I had at a cocktail party, the less work that it required from me as a host. So I find 15 is really the minimum number of people for me to be able to tune out, because I'm like an ambivert. I may present as an extrovert, but sometimes during my parties, I run away to my bedroom. I do this almost every party. I'll just lay on the bed and like scroll social media for 5 or 10 minutes to just recharge and just chill. And when I have 15 people, I found that the room runs itself a little bit. There's a sense of energy and excitement. So I say for people, the best number is 15 to 20. That's what I found is really the sweet spot for a gathering like this.
I love that. Well, yeah, I'm going to take a lot of these tips moving forward. I wanted to go back to something you mentioned early on, which is how hosting can become a habit. And I want to learn more about how you make it a habit, and why do you think that's important?
Oh, yeah. So think about all the interesting people that you maybe meet in life or you come across over the past 2 weeks or maybe last holidays. Did you go to holiday events and you meet somebody interesting? You had a conversation with them. And yet, what is the next step to build a relationship with them? For most people, that next step is very large. You would invite them to dinner or you'd go out for a cup of coffee with them. And for many people, that is an insurmountable next step for 95% of all the people that they meet, because you're busy, you just never get around to it. Think about if you live alone or if you have a partner, all the people you've said, oh, we should hang out with them. And you never have, you never do, because you don't make time for it, because it's hard, it's very hard. I've found that when you make hosting a habit, you have a funnel, it could be called the friendship funnel, that you get to filter people in through. Anyone interesting that you meet that you haven't seen in a long time, you simply say, hey, my friends and I, we're hosting a little happy hour in a couple of weeks. Can I send you the information? Again, note the phrasing I use there. Can I send you the information? Not do you want to come? Can I send you the information is an easy yes to, and everybody wants to be invited to a party. Do you want to come? I only use those words for the first 5 people that I invite. It's what I call your core group. That core group, you'll look for 5 yeses to give you the confidence that if only those people show up, you'll know that you'll have a good party. The number one fear for a new host is that nobody will show up, or worse, that only 2 or 3 people will show up and it's terribly awkward. And so much of the work in my book happens before, 2 or 3 weeks before the party, to fill up your guest list, to guarantee that you have the confidence to know that folks will show. And I actually track it because I'm a nerd, and readers of my book say that over 93% of those people who say they're going to come actually come. And that's because we send these reminder messages and we use my secret weapon called guest bios and other things.
That is, that's remarkable. That's a good percentage.
Yeah, it's nice.
Well done.
Yeah.
I wanted to, we're going to, in a few minutes, we're going to do some, a couple of rapid fire questions, but I wanted to ask, how do you feel about giving a little bit of the, like sharing the formula?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I'll tell everything for any of this group.
And this is, yeah, this is definitely not a sales pitch for the book. This is like a, hey, we all get to have these tools, these skills, and
yes.
just give it to us.
Yes. And if you don't like my book or you think it's a scam, I'll give you all your money back. There's over 330 reviews on Amazon. I think people seem to like it. So the formula is basically, think about my name. It's Nick, N-I-C-K. What does my party entail? Think about my name. N stands for name tags. There's name tags to make it easy for people to approach others. A name tag is like a sports jersey, that we're all on the same team, that this isn't a party of cliques. Oh, this isn't kids from school. This isn't workers. Everybody's on the same team. Name tags, I will die on this hill. I, N-I-C-K. I stands for icebreakers. You'll run 2.5 icebreakers at your party. The icebreakers are a conversational crutch to help new conversations, but they also help break the conversations. You ever go to a party and you get trapped talking to someone, you're too nice to end it? We use icebreakers to help end those conversations for our guests, to mix the room up. By the way, the best icebreakers, I think icebreakers get a bad rep because people do them wrong. The best icebreaker at the beginning of an event is not the same as the best at the end of an event. Beginning of an event, when there's no rapport built up, when people are stiff, a good icebreaker is fast, easy to think about, fast to answer, and no judgment. The question I like is, say your name, say what you do for work or how you spend your day, and then what's one of your favorite things to eat for breakfast? Okay, that sounds silly. You're like, that's a middle school question. Well, the answer and the question don't matter. The purpose is to get people talking. Breakfast is something that people do, that it doesn't take them long to think, and it slightly expresses about their personality, and the answer is short. A good icebreaker is a fast icebreaker.
Can I jump in for just one moment to tie it to Caveday? You know, we have questions. We have these little questions at the beginning of Caves too. And again, it's not about the answer. It's just like everybody has an answer. Everyone can answer it. And it's a joiner, right? Like you are belonging to this little intimate group, and then you've got a friend in that party, or you've got a friend in the cave immediately. And I love that kind of easy question. Okay, keep going.
The question at the end of the event is what I call an advanced level icebreaker, and it needs to be value additive. Okay, so somebody said, oh, 2 truths and a lie. That's a terrible icebreaker. That makes anxious people like lock up. And no, I don't like those icebreakers. What I like to ask at the end of the night is a value additive icebreaker that adds value to the room to make the room feel smarter. 3 examples of that is, what's an object you purchased over the last year for $100 or less? Could be a kitchen gadget or an experience like a massage. That's 1. Number 2, what's a piece of media that you've consumed recently that you'd like and recommend? It could be a documentary, a book, a podcast. What's something? I give people a 5-minute warning on this question, by the way. Hey, everybody, 5 minutes. We're going to do our last round of icebreakers. Here is the question. The scripts for all of these things, word by word, is written out of my book, and people actually read it during the party. The last one I like is, what is a pro tip or life hack for the city that you live in? If you were in Minneapolis, like Angeline, you would say, hey, what's your favorite life hack for Minneapolis? That could be your favorite local small business you want to support, a cafe, a dog park, a hiking trail. What do you like in this town that you want to share? And that value additive icebreaker, why we do it is, number 1, it helps your guests. Everybody gets great ideas. And number 2, they leave your party saying, holy shoot, I met new people and I feel smarter with all these suggestions. That was the best 2-hour party I've been to all day. Okay, the formula, N-I-C-K. N is for name tags, I is for icebreakers. C is for cocktails only, no food. You can do light snacks. You can do salted nuts. You can do chips and guacamole. But I want to give you the restriction, because if I say food, then you say, oh, well, maybe I'm going to heat up some of this. Well, with that, I need some dip. Well, with this. You'll be shocked at how little people eat. People eat and drink when they're bored. We eat and drink at sports games, at nightclubs. We drink to excess when we're bored and we can't talk. When you create the environment for people to connect, they will drink and eat much less than you think. So C is cocktails only, and K stands for kick 'em out at the end. Your party's only 2 hours long. And I have a whole chapter on how to end your party, but you want to end it when things are going well, and people will respect you for that, and it makes it easier for you to make hosting a habit.
I love this. I love the NICK. What about follow-up? So all these people have met, right? You've made like a new nest of people. Then what?
Yeah. So I send a thank you message the next morning, because part of the thing in the book is you're going to take a group photo during your party. You'll use that group photo, by the way, in the future when you invite folks to your parties. Hey, look, I host these parties. Do you want to come? I have friends. And what do you do about the follow-up? I encourage people to swap their socials. Then I send people something called a list of guest bios, little blurbs about folks leading up to the party. And the RSVP list, we make sure that you can see the names of those who are attending. This creates this idea of social proof. It gives people fear of missing out. So you do make that. But the short answer is I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I don't encourage a new host to create a WhatsApp group or send all the contact information without permission. Just wait, host another party later, you'll invite folks. Yeah, there's a lot more to that, so it's sort of tricky.
These are excellent tips. What I love about your parties, Nick, is as a participant, it feels very smooth. I mean, it is very smooth. And you don't really think about how it's being facilitated. But you have put so much thought into every piece, right? Every moment, every touch point, you've really thought about it. And the same could be said for what we do in the cave, in that, like, as a participant, it feels very simple. Like, you log in, you have a little breakout, you do your thing, but every moment, every word choice we use has been thought through. And like, sometimes the simple formulas or the formats are what can be the most impactful. So I love these tips that you've shared. And I wanted to switch over to one bigger question and then some of our rapid fire. Does that sound okay?
Yes. I'm gonna go through those. I've just seen some chat ones of people saying that they are gonna buy my book. Thank you very much. If you cannot afford right now in your life to buy my book, you can find my details online. I'm happy to send you a free copy, but you have to make a commitment that you will host your party. And here's why. I'm on a mission to try to get 500 people to host a party for their friends and neighbors. I think that the loneliness epidemic is real, and that we can change that by bringing people together, our neighbors, our friends, our old classmates and colleagues. And all it takes is a simple party. So like, my number is 500. It's so weird, but I'm obsessed with that. And I spend all day trying to recruit people into what feels like an MLM. It's like, no, I just want you to host a party, and you can do it, and your neighbors will love you. But that's what I do all day. I'm on 153 now that I've personally talked to and had phone calls with. And so that's what I do now. I'm very lucky.
Amazing. There are some questions in here, but I'm going to wait to ask those until a few moments. And I'm going to share more links to blogs and things like that. So hang tight for more links. I just wanted to make sure we get to some of these standard questions we like to ask in our deep dives. Big question for Caveday community, because we care about this, but what do you do to stay focused? You have, your output is remarkable. And how do you stay focused?
It's so funny because I do struggle with focus. I oftentimes have to tell myself, focus. I remove most notifications from my phone, so it means I miss messages on social media sometime, but I do remove those. I go into sleep mode, moon mode on my phone. I have different work environments. I have a standing desk, as you see now. If I need to sit down to focus, then I sit down sometimes. I use brain.fm to help me focus. So I enjoy listening to that. And I do well with saying 10 minutes, 5 minutes, even sometimes 3 minutes, just work on it for 3 minutes. And oftentimes after my 10-minute thing goes off, I want to keep working. But sometimes it's just saying, just do your taxes for 10 minutes, and then it's not so bad.
We actually talk about that too, like set a timer, and then probably you're going to want to do more. Yeah, I love that. So, okay, another few questions here. What's your biggest distraction?
My biggest distraction is I'm guilty of looking for likes on social media and of trying to use social media. So probably my biggest distraction is Twitter, probably.
Copy that. Um, who has influenced your work the most, and have you told them?
Um, so I'll give a curveball beyond great books like Atomic Habits and things like that. When I was in middle school, there was a guy who lived in my neighborhood that had a computer company. His name was Alan Langley, and he helped me start to make websites and get my first job making websites back in 1996 or 95. And I actually found him on LinkedIn recently, and I reached out to him as like a really like heartwarming, good story. And I think I'll meet up with him in the next year or so.
Oh, I love that. That's great. We had a reach out cave yesterday where people were encouraged to just reach out to people. And it takes us little effort to reach out to someone, but can have, great impact, great reward.
I love that.
What's a piece of content you've been recommending lately? Book, podcast, show, movie?
If you have not seen the documentary called The Rescue, I think it's on Disney Plus. It's produced by National Geographic. It is about the Thai boys that were trapped in the cave and the scientific. It is a National Geographic produced documentary of that rescue mission that is family friendly and so wholesome and so good. It came out a year or two ago. It's very good.
Plus one that it's remarkable. And one last like silly question before we open it up to our guests here. What is one thing you love to have for breakfast, Nick? You have to let us know.
Okay, do not judge me. Nobody judge me. Since I moved to the suburbs, or not in New York anymore, now I go to Costco, and I love Costco. And I buy these like egg bites, microwavable egg bites. I think Starbucks has them too. And I get them, they're like $1 or whatever, but they're egg bites, and I microwave these eggs, and it's so easy, and the protein, and it's healthy. So I like that. If I have more time, then I scramble eggs, and my secret ingredient is coconut oil. If I'm scrambling them, it like sweetens it up. It's a neat little thing.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing. I'm going to throw this is your website here. I'm just going to give a bunch of links. And can I share your Instagram?
Oh yeah, please.
Yeah.
I'm very proud. I'm proud of my Instagram. Really
fun, engaging Instagram. And also the newsletter is weekly?
It's whenever I have something to send. So every 6 weeks or so.
I love.
By the way, everyone should do a friend's newsletter. You should do like an annual letter to your friends. I grew up in a house where my parents sent these like annual letters to their friends with a card. And I think everybody should do one to their friends, send an annual letter.
I love that. There's a lot of stuff to follow if you want to follow Nick. But I wanted to, before we do a deep dive, before we get into a little work sprint, let's answer some questions. So there was one that came up here a little bit ago about time of day. Is there a best? So if you have questions, please throw them in the chat, and this is our time to do it. Is there a best time or day to have parties?
Yes, controversial. You guys are going to hate me for this. Here's what I think. Best day of the week to host a party is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights. Why is that? Because those are not socially competitive nights. You're likely to receive less cancellations and more yeses, and your guests are more likely to leave earlier because it's a school or a work day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights. The ideal time when I was in New York was 7 to 9 p.m. because people tend to work later. Use your own judgment. I found here in Austin, Texas, they start work earlier and end earlier. So I kind of do 6 to 8 here, but feel your crowd. You want to give people time, and you mentioned to them, by the way, no formal food will be served at this. So I find 6:30 to 8:30, something like that.
Great. And so then they had a follow-up of days to avoid, which you've already answered. Thursdays and Fridays.
Red level days. You want to avoid red level days when people are likely to have schedule conflicts that pop up. And so Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. And also you don't want to do it around holidays. You don't want to do a big party. Your first party should be low stakes affair.
Love that. Question from Angeline in my hometown of Minneapolis. What if you don't or can't host in your own home?
So I'll share a list of some other venues. And I would say that I hope that links works. I would say that for the majority of people, 95% of people, hosting at home really is best. And I would challenge those who think that they can't host at home. A lot of people have like party trauma or limiting beliefs that I love to talk to people on the phone about. But if you cannot host at home, then if you live in an apartment, I love apartment common spaces. If you can do it at a library, if you can do it at a community center, the number one thing that you can do is find a friend that would be willing to be your co-host in name, but you're the real host in spirit. And the friend, many times we have friends who have these incredible houses or homes, and they're like, yeah, I've wanted to host, I just haven't. And say, look, I'm reading this book. May I run this party? I'm going to do all the invitations. You can invite some of your friends, and can I use your house? And you'll be surprised. A lot of people want a friend that will host and help them host.
That's a great pro tip. And Sasha in San Francisco asks, what's the half of the 2.5 icebreakers?
I'm so glad you asked. So the half is the first one that you do about 5 minutes after your party starts, when there's only 4 or 5 folks who've arrived. The beginning of every event is what I call the awkward zone. It's the first 10, 15 minutes of a party when not many people have arrived. There's not enough critical mass or momentum to get conversations naturally happening. You use that icebreaker as a practice round for you and to help you break out of the awkward zone. And so that half icebreaker is at the beginning. It's actually the same one that you'll do later. But you say to the group, hey, everybody, thank you so much for coming. You guys are my A team. You're the first arrivals. Will you help me out? I want to practice a quick round of icebreakers. We'll do this later in 20 minutes when everybody's here. But for now, just real quick, say your name, say how you spend your days, and tell me one of your favorite things for breakfast. They won't mind doing the same thing again. But I do that because many readers of my book have never hosted an icebreaker. They've never ran one. And so I say, do that half one at the very beginning to give you the confidence. So later when you do it, you're like, oh, this works. This is awesome.
Love that. And I don't see any more questions coming in yet, but I'm going to ask one. And then if you have one more question, go in. We have time for one more aside from mine. But we talked a lot about how you can be a good host, but how can you be a good guest? Is there a way that you prepare your guests for how to arrive to a Nick Gray cocktail party?
So what does everybody say when they show up early? How can I help? As a host, you can help have things in mind that you can delegate duties to those early arrivals. Some things that you can delegate or that you could do when you show up is to offer to help with coats or jackets, to offer to help show people the bar. The bar, by the way, for all these parties, it's just a self-serve bar. It's not like you hire a bartender. I don't even know how to make cocktails, but I just put out some drinks and folks figure it out themselves. You can assign somebody as the photographer. If you go to a party, I can guarantee you that the host is forgetting to take photos. You can snap some candid photos throughout the night and follow up with the host. Hey, I snapped these photos. If you'd like them, here they are. Just with your phone, it's as easy enough for that. I have a whole list of things you can do to delegate those duties. That is pretty nice.
Do you recommend that? Do you tell people in advance, like, show up on time? This is because 2-hour parties. If you're coming 30 minutes late, does it matter for the guest if they come late?
I try to make it as easy as possible for people to show up. And if they have to show up, I say, absolutely, still come by. You will be shocked at the amount of people that will show up on time. When you add both a start time and an end time to your party, most people never include an end time. It's this open-ended invite. Come over on Saturday at 5 p.m. And now we're doing this calculus where it's like, okay, well, they said 5 p.m. I guess that means 6 p.m., but they're from South America, so that means 7 p.m. and then traffic, and like you're doing all this mental math. No, when you list a start time and an end time, it's clear what time to show up.
Oh, I love that. That's great. I had never really thought about that. All right, Nick, any last minute things you want to say before we jump into our deep dive sprint? Ooh, actually, we got one last question that came in here from Sasha.
Yeah.
Can you share more about the bios? Not sure I caught the details. Do you ask them to send it in advance?
So the guest bios are one of my secret weapons to boost attendance, and they're brief blurbs about your guests. Dan is my neighbor. He has a dog. I think he practices yoga. Sasha lives in San Francisco. She loves to work at this thing called Caveday. Molly plays the piano. You should ask her about that. They are little blurbs that are about folks. They're not Forbes 30 under 30. You're just talking points. Here's the key thing. You don't ask people for them. That's too much work. Nobody's going to say, oh my God, you didn't include me. You write these for half or more of all your guests. I have a whole chapter on what to include, and you send these out in your 2 last reminder messages. They're conversational access points to get people excited to attend, and for those people that are a little bit sort of anxious, to let them know who's coming. And that really helps give them the confidence and the excitement to want to come and say, oh, I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. I want to meet someone who works at Microsoft or something like that.
Yeah, on the receiving end, I will say it's really awesome to know a little bit about the guests that are coming and like, ooh, I want to meet that person. It's adds intrigue before the event. Nick, thank you so much for chatting with us. And I'm hoping that you can stay for a little deep work time. Amazing. Great. So folks, I'm going to stop spotlighting you for a moment here and we can come back together. Great. Take my spotlight off. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see you all. We're going to dive into a deep work sprint. I know that most of you are familiar with the Cave. If you are not, just a quick raise of hand or throw in the chat if this is your first time in a Caveday event, just so I know who is, if there's any new first timers. So what we're going to do, great, Kelsey, amazing. So we're going to spend roughly 40-ish minutes. I'm not going to tell you exactly how long, and we're going to get some work done on one particular project. You're going to pick one thing, and you're just going to focus on it. We're going to put our phones away, out of sight, close email if you don't need it. It's really just focusing on one specific task. Usually we go into a breakout room, but for ease of time, we're going to just put in our names. So update your name to say first name, where you are, and what's your primary task that you're going to work on for the next 40 minutes. So for me, I'm going to say community cave, which is very cryptic. But you can put in your name what you're planning to spend the next 40 minutes on. That'll just help you stay focused on that one task. If you have questions, especially those first timers, you can ask me directly. But for now, let's dive right in. Before we do, we'll do a little ritual here. We rub our hands together. If you have questions, please let me know. I'm going to pull us out when the 40 minutes is up, and we'll do a little share out on how it went and say a final thank you to Nick. All right, in 3, 2, 1, doing a big clap. All right, friends, the sprint has started. See you on the other side. There it is. All right, everybody, how did that feel? What did you accomplish? What are you feeling good about? Welcome back from the sprint. Go ahead and throw it in the chat if you've got some wins. I put up something that I've been avoiding. We're building this sort of community cave tech thing that we're excited to put some more beta tests out there. Danielle got focused right away. Amazing. Karen got a bunch of graphics done for my online challenge. Great, Gia. I got one post up and I'm continuing on another. Amazing. Finished a landing page draft. Excellent. Made progress on my PowerPoint slides. I've been putting them off. Now, it's amazing what you can do with 40 minutes. Sometimes I really underscope. I've been like putting something off because I feel like it's going to be so hard and take long. And then I just start and it's actually takes like 20 minutes versus the 3 hours that I thought it might. All right, well, thank you so much for being here today. And thanks to Nick. I'm not sure if he's still there, but what a fun conversation. Let me just throw this music down a little bit. I mean, I loved that conversation with Nick about parties. I'll throw his website here. And like I said, there's a lot of the ways that you can keep in touch with Nick. You can find his newsletter there. The book, if you're interested, there's a link right there to the Amazon book. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. We're going to keep doing these deep dives. We intend to do them once a month, where we meet interesting folks doing interesting things, and then we get to sprint alongside of them. So stay tuned for the one coming up in March, and we have one in April planned already as well. So excited to see you there and in the cave. All right, as we do, let's high five right to the camera in 3, 2, 1. All right, folks, thank you so much. See you next time. Bye-bye.